I there we go. Got it. Okay, so I just want to share my screen and welcome everybody to our very next career conversation. And this morning we have a really special guest. We have a marketing manager today. Her name is Caitlin Carriker, and I am your moderator today. For those of you who haven't met me before, my name is Reese Perez, and I am the CTE and High School Curriculum Coordinator here at Sequoia Grove. And again, I'd like to welcome Caitlin Carriker. And Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I'm so excited to dive into all this today.
Thanks, Reese. I'm really excited to be here.
So I'd like to just start with some of the basics. Tell us all about yourself.
Yeah, well, my name's Caitlin. I was born and raised in Arizona. I went to college there as well. I graduated with a degree in marketing and I minored in communications from Arizona State. After that, shortly moved to California and I've been here ever since. So living in Granite Bay, just was newly engaged. So live here with my fiance and we have a 8-year-old son in second grade. So my career path has been really interesting. It's evolved over the last 10 years. Started out wanting to be in event planning and did large festivals and fun things like that, and have now evolved into more general marketing. Most recently was employed at a company called Round as a marketing manager of life cycle, which I'll explain a little bit more as well. If you are following or tracking a lot of the news about the tech industry, which is where I predominantly am employed in, there's been a lot of craziness. People have been going through layoffs with budgets changing and the economy and a lot of fear. So I actually was recently laid off just about 3 weeks now. Yeah, I know, crazy, but it's so normal right now. I'm sure a lot of people know someone that's been recently laid off in the last year and a half. It happens, especially with private companies. And I was working at a startup, which means it was a very, very new company trying to get investors. So this is very normal. I was not shocked. But what's great about my career path is that it's very flexible. So I was able to shift into freelance contracting, so I can still bring in an income, work on different projects, and have more of an entrepreneurial role.
That's super cool. I love that you were able to shift so quickly like that. Wow, that's really amazing.
Most people, it's a very unique area to be in. So very grateful for that, definitely.
Yeah. I heard you say that you went to Arizona State. That's actually a curriculum that we use for our high school students. We use ASU Prep Digital. So Arizona State
perfect.
Like a high school program, which is really cool.
I love that.
Yeah. So super interesting that you went there too. Awesome. Okay. How would you describe what you do?
So I think when I think of marketing, or when anybody thinks of marketing, they might have like very specific understandings of what it is. My job and my role is really unique to the industry. I would call myself a product and marketing strategist. So what I do is I specialize in the digital world. I work on a lot of platforms and services that exist through online. So for example, I've worked in the food service industry on online ordering apps, which became a huge deal during COVID. A lot of people started to really use those. So that was a really interesting industry to be in. I've worked in virtual fitness. So for an app where you could do one-to-one fitness classes. I've also worked in education for a gaming app for international students to learn English. So really interesting. So it's a lot of different things like that. And what I specifically do is I understand the customer, the audience. I do a lot of research and understand the landscape. So that's thinking about different competitors, what the market's like, what's the new trend, how is it changing, how can you connect with people, what's the best way to really bring this successful digital service into the market. And I create a strategy around that, and then I help with the actual launching of it. So a lot of what I do is almost the glue between all these different aspects of marketing and product development into actually launching an app where it's successful and people love it, not just from the features and functionality, but how it looks, the words that it has, how it's advertised, and different things like that.
That's super interesting. So
Yeah.
it sounds almost like marketing and sales kind of have like a partnership in what you do.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely has that, because a lot of what my ultimate goal is being able to acquire customers and bring awareness. So a lot of that, it's like behind the scenes sales. I wouldn't consider myself like a salesperson or anything like that, but I do provide a lot of materials and positioning for sales to be successful.
Okay, interesting. I
Mhm.
love.
Yeah.
How did you get started in your career? What were the requirements, education, skills, all of that? Obviously, you said you went to
Yeah.
ASU,
Yep.
but what else? What was your like? What did you major in? What were your? Give us all the details.
Yeah, of course. So I remember pretty vividly being a senior in high school. I had been accepted into ASU. I knew I was going into the business college, but I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't know where I fit. I didn't really understand the different areas. Um, and I was talking to my dad because the deadline was coming up. I had to choose a major. So he and I were talking, and he's like, well, you're creative. Your English teachers have always said that like you love writing and you have that skill. Like, I feel like you'd be good at marketing. And I was like, I don't even really think I know what that is. I don't like, sure, why not at this point? Um, so I got thrown into it, and luckily, I mean, I'm definitely lucky that I really enjoyed it. It's a very vast industry that can cater to a lot of different um, strengths and preferences, because you can be so analytical and like numbers driven and looking at data and being a data analyst, to being more creative like a graphic designer, and all of that is part of marketing. So that's essentially how I got started. And then a lot of the requirements for marketing, especially tech, is a bachelor's degree. Um, I would say having it be in marketing or business is preferred, but not essential. And as far as skills go, there's a ton of different certificates that you can do, extended learning. I'm constantly learning new skills. But I would say the biggest area of what led me down this path is just finding jobs, doing it, seeing what I liked, and following those paths, and learning, being open to learning new things, and networking and finding mentors to help me understand. Because I mean, if I look back at where I started, especially being in event planning, I really thought that's what I wanted to do. I was going to plan festivals, weddings, I mean, anything like that. And I've completely shifted to like a whole different path. And it's really just from opportunities that I was given, things that I learned about myself while working in those roles, and just trying new things. So I think a lot of it just comes from experience.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I can't imagine how quickly the landscape of what you do shifts just technologically and everything else. I just have, this is kind of a little bit off topic,
Yeah.
but I know AI is kind of like a really big topic right now. Are
Yeah.
you like involved in any of that as far as the marketing concept, or like developing or like pushing any of that goes?
I haven't been. I've worked with some AI technology, with evolving apps that focus on that. Like, for example, the education app, a lot of it had to do with movement, and they used an AI technology to be able to track these things. And I mean, it's so beyond what I
Yeah.
do, and like understand that it's like, it's crazy. And I've had to do, I mean, there's so much coming out, especially in the last few months with like chat GPT,
Yeah.
and different things like that, that you have to really stay on top of it and do research and read and learn, because it's just like you said, it's constantly changing. It's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't even imagine how much professional development you would have to do to stay abreast of like the current thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. It takes a lot, but luckily it's fun. So it's easy to do.
Very cool.
Mhm.
So can you tell us about a day in the life? Like when you get up in the morning to when you end your workday, what does that look like?
Yeah, of course. Gosh, a day in the life. I will say for this profession specifically that I'm in, there's no regular day or anything like that. It's all unexpected. It changes and pivots based on the project and the goal, um, especially right now doing freelance. So luckily, just my regular morning routine, I take my son to the bus stop, and now thanks because of the pandemic, I am allowed to do a remote work. So I've been remote working since 2021. So I have not gone back to an office space since March 2021, which is just so crazy to me. And I don't think I'll ever probably work in an office environment ever again. So I'm home and I work from home. I, open up my laptop and get it set up where my desk is. And it just those day-to-day tasks, it really depends. I think what I really love about my job is that I don't do the same thing every day, and I'll never do the same thing. There's concepts and requirements of what I need to do, but it changes all the time. Whether it's a different project, a different stage of a project where you're going from like planning and researching for an app versus the actual designing of the app versus launching the app. There's like QA, quality assurance, and making sure there's no bugs, and making sure it all looks how you want it. And even after that, then you're working on different campaigns, you're writing copy, you're working with graphic designers, you're trying to figure out different ways to push the app and make it successful. So it is really interesting how much it changes, but I'm constantly jumping in and out of meetings, talking to different clients, networking, and then also having that like heads down work time as well.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
What was your favorite marketing campaign you have ever worked on or created?
Ooh, that's a good one. Um, you know, I did a campaign for Wingstop a few years ago, which was really interesting. It being my favorite because it had such a strategic background. So, a Wingstop was a client. I worked in an agency, and they came to us and they said, "Okay, we have our app. We built the app. We launched it." And they're like, "Okay, now our goal is we really want to sell more boneless wings than bone-in wings because the cost of goods is lower and they're faster to make." So the Wingstop at that time was dealing with delays in pickup orders and different things like that. Uh, Food was starting to cost a lot more with inflation. So they were like, "This is our business reason for doing this. Here's this chunk of information, figure out how to market it, and make it successful. Like, how are you going to change our business model by just what you're going to promote in the app, in TV commercials, in emails, in SMS, push notifications, and different things like that?" So I got pulled in more from a strategy angle. So it was I came in with like, okay, these are the families we want to cater to. These are events that are coming up. Super Bowl is coming up. So how can we push like different promotions for boneless wings? And it was really fun. I think just being able to take something that understand why a company is doing it and then be able to like make it fun and put it in front of the customer. Because I think as a customer myself, you don't always understand the background of like why you're seeing an ad or what they're trying to do. So it was really cool to make that connection.
Awesome. I love that. Some of the most funny, amazing ads are the ones that just stick with me and with our family.
Yep.
So I'm curious about that too. Is that like an angle that, depending upon the company, is that something that you go towards also?
Oh yeah. I mean, Wingstop especially, they're a very creative corporate company. They like want to always push the fold and be different and fun and exciting. So that was I think great too, because they were like, the world is your oyster. Like, what can you come up with that is really gonna just like blow people out of the water and be really unique? I've also worked with clients that are like very mainstream, like has to be part of like this very small thing. And if it's not within that boundary, like they won't push it. So it all depends on the company and the approach.
What kind of company do you prefer working with? Like the ones that are like, okay, this is what we want, or the ones that are like, okay, go for it?
Oh gosh, I mean, there's positives and negatives to both. But I would say like it definitely is more fun, especially if you're working with a really creative team, for the people who are like, yeah, do whatever you want, like figure it out. And like the ideas that people come up with, like those meetings, the strategy meetings that you have with so many different minds that think so differently. The ideas that can come out of it are really, really cool. So I've been in those meetings and I'm like, I would have never thought of that, or like I would have never come to this conclusion without having these like very creative, open-minded conversations.
I love that. That's so cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, sometimes more heads are better than just one, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Super cool. Lots of teamwork, it sounds like.
Definitely.
What do you like about what you do?
What do I like? I think for a while in my career, I struggled with being very analytical and technical, and then also being very creative. And I didn't know how to mesh those two worlds. So I followed paths of wanting to become a graphic designer and learning how to do that. And then I was like, no, I think I'm not that creative, but maybe I'll be a developer. And I learned how to code. And then I was like, no, that's way too technical for me. Like I'm not. And so what I love about what I do is it really meshes all of these different worlds together, like a very left and right brain thinker. Um, so it created a place for me where I felt very comfortable and I can be very flexible between what I'm working on, and no job that I do is ever the same. So having that like newness and constantly learning and evolving, like it keeps things really exciting.
I can totally see that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Having things be different all the time.
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah, it's nice.
On the
Yeah,
flip side of
sometimes.
that, what would you say is the hardest part about what you do?
Oh, I would say that there's a lot of misconceptions about what I do, as far as a lot of people be like, well, you just work in marketing, like it's easy, or you just sit at home on your computer all day, like what are you really doing, or like anyone can do it. And I think there's so much more to it that people don't understand. So there is a lot of that, like having to really distinguish yourself as an acclaimed professional with a specialty that has these skills and these certificates, that it doesn't always come easy. Um, so I think that would be one of the hardest parts. And then on the flip side of that, there's a lot of uncertainty. Um, just like I said, every day is new. It's like you really don't know what's coming next, especially in the freelance world. You're really running your own business. You're having to sell yourself. You're having to network and find these jobs, and nothing is ever always just certain or anything like that. And it fluctuates. So that's really difficult. I think, I could tell you right now, like I have projects that I'll be working on through June, but like what I need to start thinking about, what am I going to do in July and August, and what who knows what's going to come up, or what projects are going to fail and I won't have them anymore, or something like that. So that uncertainty can be difficult, but also just have to have the right mindset, and it's like an adventure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
That's super good insight too, though.
Yeah.
That was something I hadn't considered at all. But yeah,
Mhm.
good insight. Okay, what are, hang on a minute, let me move this thing. Sorry. What are the essential traits to be a good marketer?
Yeah, I think it's such a vast industry. There's so many different traits, really, when I think of like the mechanics of marketing, that no matter what you really enjoy or love, and what you feel like you're good at and brings you passion and joy, you can always find a spot within the marketing industry where you'll fit and be able to expand your career. I think with marketing, no matter what area you're in, just like we were talking about before, it's always changing. So you have to be very flexible. You have to be open to learning new things and constantly expanding your horizons and seeing where you can go. Like, what is tomorrow? What's 10 years from now? Because we like it's crazy how far we can go, especially working in tech. I mean, it's it's something that I have to always stay on top of to make sure that I'm a specialist in my job. Because I do get a lot of clients that are like, have you ever done this before? Have you worked in this platform? Do you know a lot about this? And you never want to have to say no. Um, and that's another thing too, is like being humble, talking to people, asking for help, learning from mentors, different things like that. Like marketing is really just learning by experience and putting yourself out there and being open to trying new things.
It's such good advice for any field, really, that
Yeah.
students want to go into. Like having a mentor is huge. It's so huge. And just
Oh
being
yeah.
humble across the board, like those are great things in any profession. Those are
Oh,
things that,
absolutely.
we look for in education. Those are things that, in any career field, they're going to be coveted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we already talked about this a tiny bit, but what is
Yeah.
a common misconception about what you do?
I think things have changed, but even like when I was choosing my degree, I was like, oh, marketing, like that's commercials and ads and things like that. And I really didn't understand the intricacies of it. There's so much more depth, and different areas to it. I have a lot of people, especially when I say I work in strategy, I would get introduced to people that I just met, and a friend who I've known for years would be like, oh, Caitlin works in advertising, or Caitlin works in PR or something. And I'm like, I do nothing of the sorts. Like I do not any of those things. So it is interesting, like what people associate with marketing, because it's just so much larger than anyone would ever expect. And I didn't even realize. Um, so I think that's something that I think is really interesting and good to know for people who are thinking about business and what marketing could be. It really can be so many different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually don't think social media helps you guys at all. I think, with influencers being such a
Yeah, that's like
thing,
another thing.
yeah, I feel like I just uncorked a whole can of worms right there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's that. I mean, that's like a whole nother offset, like called affiliate marketing. And that's something like I never involved in. So it like that in of itself is a career of
Yeah.
people finding influencers and figuring out how to promote products and stuff like that. So yeah, it is, I would think right now in this day and age, people would probably associate like marketing with social media and the sponsored ads and things like that. But yeah, there's definitely those are professions, but it's not the only part of it.
Yeah, kind of a specialized portion of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, last question before we open it up to questions from the audience.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for young people looking to get into your career?
I think networking is huge. You never know how someone you meet can play such an influential role in your life. I've been so lucky to have amazing mentors throughout my career, people who have listened to my goals and helped me try new things and recommended me for projects or different job changes and things like that. That, like, even now as a freelancer, one of the biggest parts of why I was able to shift so quickly after being laid off is I reached out to my network and asked, like, if anybody has any projects or leads or that they could recommend me or send over, like, please do. And there's 3 projects that I'm working on right now, all from coworkers who recommended me, who had worked with me in the past. So I think just always talk to people, utilize your network, be really humble and open to learning from people. And another big thing is never have an ego. I'm 10 years into a marketing career, and I have a lot of people be like, are you too above doing like hands-on and execution work? And I'm like, no, I'm happy to jump in wherever. It doesn't matter the level or anything like that. Like, I'll never be too good or too experienced to do something, and just be open, and you're always going to learn from it no matter what.
That's great advice. Super great advice, especially for kids going out of high school and looking at all of these different career possibilities that lay ahead of them.
Yeah.
And in trying to help them weed out where they want to head. That's great advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, folks. So I know you guys probably have lots of questions for Caitlin. Feel free to pop them in the chat. Mary, if you want to stop recording so that we can just ask questions, we can do that as well.